Let's get into our first guest of the evening. She is a cartoonist who has done a number of graphic novels. In fact, we had her on years ago to talk about The Nameless City, and we talked to her about Superhero Girl. A lot of great books. Right now, her current project, she is drawing and writing a adaptation of the Universal Monsters film, The Mummy, for Image Comics. Two issues are out so far. It's a lot of fun. Please welcome back to the program, Faith Erin Hicks.
Yay. I decided to be my own cheering section.
Yeah. All right.
Woo!
Woo! There we go. It's so great to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. Of course, The Mummy, one of the classic Universal Monsters films. And of course, Skybound over at Image. They're releasing the Universal Monsters series. You're working on The Mummy. And I know that they basically told you, hey, the movie's canon, but you can do anything around it, either fill in gaps or do a sequel or whatever. And you came at it from the perspective of Helen for this story, which was really, so far, I'm finding it super exciting. What was the drive to go from that perspective?
I'm always interested in the female perspective when it comes to a horror movie or a horror story. I'm someone who, for many years, I was too much of a chicken to really engage with horror as a genre. But I was always very attracted to it. I guess it was like the fear of the unknown or the fear of something that I knew could potentially really scare me and like give me nightmares. But yeah, I'm like way too sensitive when it comes to horror images. But in the past few years, I don't know if this is basically my pandemic trauma response or something like that, but I started really getting into horror. And because, watching a lot of old movies, and I wasn't actually super familiar with the original Universal monster movies. I hadn't seen a lot of them, including The Mummy. I'd seen the 1999 Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz Mummy. I saw that when that was in theaters, and like a lot of I think elder millennials really imprinted on it. But that movie is very different from the original, and not like tonally they're also very different. I would not consider the 1999 movie to be really a horror movie. It's more an action adventure, Raiders of the Lost Ark
Yeah.
style, supernatural adventure. So yeah, I went back. Alex, my editor at Skybound, approached me, said he was heading up a line of Universal Monster comics, and here was a couple of options. Was I interested? So I went and watched a few of the movies that were available, and The Mummy. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It was very dark, very gothic, and at its core is a lot of love. It's really about this relationship between the mummy Imhotep and his lost love, Anck-su-namun, who is the woman he fell in love with thousands of years ago in ancient Egypt. The woman he's still in love with when he's resurrected in modern day Cairo. And I was just fascinated by that story and fascinated by their relationship. And I really wanted to tell the story from the perspective of the modern incarnation of the Anck-su-namun, this young woman, Helen, who is the female lead in the original movie, and what she would feel when she's confronted by this undying love, this undead man who isn't, I mean, he is a villain. He's a horrifying figure, but he's also, I found him very sympathetic. It's like, I don't know, he misses his girlfriend and, is going to cause havoc because of that. So like, that's bad. That makes him a villain. But yeah, I found the mummy deeply sympathetic, and I wanted to approach him a little bit from a sympathetic angle.
It's interesting because, like, as you mentioned, most people currently that might be listening to this would be more familiar with the Brendan Fraser version, as you mentioned, which, as you said, like, compared to the original, like, I saw the original when I was like, I don't know, I was like 9 or 10 years old, scared the shit out of me. I was terrified of this movie, loved it, but terrified. And compared to the other Universal films, this is the one that actually, like, legit scared me, just because of something about the way that the mummy moved and the lighting and all that stuff. But I do find it interesting, like, as you mentioned, that how the two stories are so different in tone, but like at the heart of it, it's still essentially about this unrequited love sort of across millennia, that goes on between these two characters. When you were coming in to write that, like, did that present some new challenges on like how to like get on the horse of that kind of a story, like to keep it under control of what you wanted to do?
It wasn't, it honestly, I feel like it just sort of clicked with me immediately. I actually just finished up the 4th issue of the comic. So it's done. It's, you know, it's shipped off to Skybound, and I found the story incredibly compelling, and just, I don't know, I just kind of locked in immediately because I love the idea of tragic romances. I mean, in fiction, not in real life.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely not in real life, but maybe that's why I find them so compelling, because, you know, I don't find it appealing in real life, but in fiction, it's like, oh yeah, you can really dig into the drama and the horror of it, you know, like, I don't know. I just found it so compelling right from the get-go. It's very different from my previous work. I've never done a comic like this, and I don't really know where sort of that dark side of me came from, where I was immediately like, yes, I'm doing this. This is amazing. I want to draw it. I want to write it. I want to do everything but color. And Skybound, to their credit, just was like, okay, you want to do this? You want to do all of this? That's fine. Because originally they approached me just to do writing. Like they didn't think of me as the type of artist that would be interested in this particular style of comic. But yeah, they were up for it, and I'm super thrilled by the results. And yeah, it was a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. And like the artwork, again, you said this is kind of your first major foray into this. I guess the closest to like horror before that, you did the Last of Us prequel comic, which I have over there. It's pretty damn good. But your artwork, yeah, your artwork has a particular style that is very, I guess, more comforting and inviting usually. And so with this, yeah, I guess you make it a bit grittier. And I know you did like a light ink wash to all of your pages. That was like something you tried this time. What was the process? What was the decision to go like, okay, this is the route I'm going to take to make it look a little bit more grittier?
I definitely wanted to approach it differently from my young adult or middle grade graphic novels. Up until this point, yeah, the only horror book I've done is The Last of Us. And even that was about, you know, young teenage girls in this post-apocalyptic environment. So, you know, pretty much my entire career has been focused on comics aimed at younger readers. The Mummy is my first time doing a comic exclusively for adults, and I did really want to give it a different look. So I dove into the concept of painting an ink wash over my traditional inks. When I draw comics, I have a hybrid digital traditional method. I do my inks traditionally, but I do my pencils digitally. And I'll say it was very, very time intensive. It was messy. It was slow. So I don't anticipate doing this style of ink wash over inks for a longer book. The Mummy the story is only 4 issues, so it's not super long. But it was really fun to experiment. I think it gave my artwork, you know, more grit, more of an adult look, hopefully. Hopefully it resonates with readers.
Sorry,
that was great. That was fantastic.
That was the best question I've ever asked. No, seriously, Faith, with that in mind of what you're talking about, so do you do any digital work, or do you still continue to work physically? Like,
well, she just said digital pencils.
Yeah, my pencils are digital. So I'm drawing pencils on a Cintiq, which I feel like is the standard for a lot of comic book artists these days. But then I will print out my pencils on a printer, and then over top the printed pencils, I will do physical inks. So using a brush, using a dip brush that I very painstakingly dip in. And I like inking by hand. I don't know. There's something about inking on the Cintiq that messes up my wrist. So I also find the traditional inks to be less hard on my body.
Hey, when it's all over, you got pages from it too.
That's true. That's true. I mean, every cartoonist who works in some kind of physical media, either partially the way I do or completely, it's like we have a closet in our home where it should be full of like linens or something like that, and instead it's just full of comic book pages.
Yeah. So obviously you still enjoy doing it. Yes. The inks manually, like comparatively speaking. Do you enjoy doing the pencils more digitally now than say like when you first started out? Because you Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this joke I've seen this joke going around the internet for decades now, but where you're drawing, you're a comic book artist, you're living your best life, and you draw a person on the page in front of you, and then you immediately have to resize the head because it's like you always draw the head too big. And it's like, yeah, like that is my life. I constantly draw the head too big. And with digital pencils, it's like magic. It's like I don't have to erase, I just resize it. So yeah, it makes the process of penciling so much easier.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
totally, totally. Now, you mentioned earlier about the fact that you were afraid of horror as a kid, but you were always drawn to it, and that I read at the end of the first issue that you were fascinated by horror films. You really wanted to know what was happening in them, so you'd have your dad tell you the story of what happened in each film. Like, would he like act out parts for you, or was it just very like a straight like? So this is what happened. Okay, kid. So then this happens, and that happens. Like, what was his style of telling you these stories?
Oh, he definitely wouldn't act it out. Although he was a very, he probably would have if I'd asked him. But I mean, I remember it was just I would just sit there rapt, while he told me the plot of Alien. Like I distinctly remember him telling me what happened in Alien. Because I remember going to Disney World when I was a kid, and there was a ride. I believe it was called like the Great Movie Ride or something like that. I don't think it's there anymore. This would have been in the 90s. But there was a section in that ride that was based off of Alien. And I was just, I was really young at the time and I was petrified. It was like, what is this thing? I'm so scared. And I was like, Dad, what is this movie? What, I just remember being so like freaked out by it, but also like so desperate to know what actually happened. So yeah, he just sat down and like told me beat for beat what Alien was about. I remember him explaining Psycho and The Shining to me. And like these are all movies I've seen as an adult and love very much. Like Alien is absolutely one of my favorite movies of all time. Like I just love it so much. I think it transcends horror as a genre. It's just such a great movie. But yeah, for years it was like I would never watch horror, but if there was something out there that I found interesting, I'd have to like go to him and get him to explain. Because like he was a huge movie buff, not necessarily a horror fan, but he just liked movies.
You just watched all movies, yeah.
Yeah, so he'd just seen them all.
So, like Andrew, I read as you wrote that in the back of the first issue. I was also intrigued by that because I just was like, that's such an interesting thing to be both terrified but absolutely fascinated by the story so much. So I'm curious then, when did the transition happen as you got older? Like when did you actually start watching some horror movies? Obviously as a young child, yeah, you weren't into that and that wasn't the thing for you at that point. But when did you transition into actually sitting down and watching them? And what was the first one?
I'm trying to remember. I feel like I definitely have gone through a period during the pandemic where I really sought out a lot of older horror movies or horror movies that I couldn't get through the first time. Like It Follows is actually a good example. Like I remember watching like the first 10 minutes of that movie and being like, nope, I can't do it. Nope, cannot do it. And then over the course of the pandemic, I did manage to sit down and watch it all the way through. I don't know. It's so strange. I feel like it's the anticipation that really gets me. Like I really don't enjoy movies that have a ton of like gore in them. Like that's not my thing. With the exception of John Carpenter's The Thing. The Thing is my thing.
It's a great movie.
God. It's so good. But I feel like because that's so alien, maybe I can handle it better. I feel like it's just the anticipation that gets me so much. And that was definitely the case with It Follows. Like there's nothing in it that is so horrifying, when you just take it at surface level, but it's just like the anticipation and the dread. But as for like when I really started getting comfortable with horror, I feel like on some levels I'm still not comfortable with horror. Like there are certain movies where I'm just like, oh my God, I cannot. But I remember watching the Blair Witch Project and in theaters, and that was a huge mistake. I remember driving home from the theater with the lights on in my car because I could not handle like being in a dark area or like being at night alone in my car after watching that movie. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember an exact time, but I do remember in the past few years I've absolutely gone back to movies that really, really frightened me when I was
Mhm.
younger, and I've rewatched them and really enjoyed them. I mean, The Blair Witch Project is actually one of them. I think that's a great movie. It uses the genre of found footage incredibly well. It's also really kind of wonderful to see, like, the old technology that these characters had. I found that really, really appealing. So yeah, not so scary going back to it now.
Not so scary.
Yeah.
Very cool. We got an
Yeah.
email in from Tammy L that says, "Hi to Mr. Green and Andrew Young. Demonology 101 is brilliant. Pure brilliance. Very fascinating."
Oh, God bless. Thank you. Thank you to that person. That was actually the very first comic that I ever did. It was a web comic. I started it when I was a teenager. It was how I fell in love with comics. Oh my gosh, it was so long ago.
Oh,
I actually started it, put it online on my very, very humble website back in 1999. And then finished it in 2005 when I was newly graduated from animation college. And when I was finished, the comic was over 750 pages long.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, people still love it out there. That's great. We got
I mean, yeah, that's so lovely to hear. Like, I don't know. It's like I was just a kid making a comic, and the fact that people actually read it and still remember it is such an honor.
yeah, it's very awesome. We also got an email in from George N that said, "Did Faith win an Eisner Award? What was it like to win that?"
I won two Eisner Awards.
So, so George, you're gonna find out what it was like to win both. There you go.
um, Yeah, it was wonderful. It was like both times I was there, and the very first time I won was 2014, and that was for my book, The Adventures of Superhero Girl, which is a collection of comic book strips that I used to do for a free weekly newspaper in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And Dark Horse collected it in a very lovely edition, and yeah, it won an Eisner. And I did not think I was going to win. I did actually prepare a speech ahead of time, and then they called my name, and I was so freaked out and so sure that they'd made a mistake that I ran up to the stage and forgot my speech. And then the second time I won was 2019, and my third book in the Nameless City trilogy, The Divided Earth, won. And then I was so sure I wasn't going to win that I didn't prepare a speech, and then I won and went up there and didn't have a speech. So it's like twice I've won and two times I've not had a speech. And I just want to win like one more time so I can actually go up and like
Something prepared. Yeah.
yes, yeah, and actually like thank the people who supported me throughout the years. But yeah, it's wonderful. Like, it's validation from your peers, and what greater thing, as a cartoonist, what greater thing.
Well, based on what you just described, it sounds like you're about to come due again. It sounds like you're in that kind of like this, like 4 to 6 year cycle. I feel like it's right around the corner for you.
Oh, manifesting. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
I always have a great time when I go to Comic-Con. It's like I've only been 4 times in my entire career, and the very first time I went was back in 2008, so it was a very, very long time ago before the show became what it is. But man, I would go back. I would go back anytime. Have me back, Comic-Con.
There you go. Have her back. That's what we want. Now, again, you've done some great comics, and you've gone to Comic-Con and had fun there. You've had some great moments, but you had a pretty special moment this week. You were on a panel with Lynn Johnson, creator of For Better or For Worse.
Oh my gosh, yes, it was just yesterday. I this panel just happened out of the blue. It was through this academic organization, this French Canadian academic organization. And I had no idea that they asked me to be on this panel, and I was like, great, this is local. I can take the train there. It sounds good, chance to just sit and talk about comics. And then I didn't find out until a couple of weeks before the panel that the other panelist was Lynn Johnson, who's, the creator for Better for Worse. And I read her comic for decades, like literally decades, and always really loved it. And I feel like I don't know, like, she broke so much ground for female cartoonists. And, she's she's a legend. She's an incredible, yeah, she's an absolute legend. And I was so nervous when I went there. And yeah, you know, the panel was lovely. She was lovely, but I'm still like kind of reeling over it and hoping that possibly I'll get to meet her again and hopefully act more normal.
There we go. So you're manifesting another Eisner win and another chance to meet Lynn. That's what we want for you. Definitely.
Yes, please. It's like, I don't know. It's so funny. It's like, you know, like I've met Jeff Smith, who is also another hero of mine. And it's like, it's my heroes have all been lovely. Like they have always, you know, they've been absolutely lovely people. And it's just, I never know how to act around them because it's just like, they're the people who showed me what a cartoonist could do. They're the ones who inspired me, who put me on this path. And that's really hard to communicate to a person.
Well,
Totally.
you know, I gotta say, like, just hearing that you know, nerd out a little bit and are not sure, you know, like mimicking what a lot of us feel like when, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of fans who meet you who feel the same way, that they don't know how to talk to you. Like it's cool to hear that you also you still have that kind of like, oh my God, you're the one who changed my life. You know, like, have you had that experience where somebody has come up and just didn't know how to talk to you?
I think so. I've definitely had younger readers come up to me, so you know, teens, and you know, talk to me about how they read my comics as a kid, and that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't see into someone's brain. So it's like if someone felt the way I felt when I saw Lynn Johnson, I mean, they were probably doing a great job of hiding it and remaining composed, which I also hope I was doing when I met Lynn Johnson.
Of course,
yeah,
of course
I don't
you were.
know. Like I always thought, like I've always felt this way. I've always been a big fan. And yeah, like just a big fan of artists and their work. And art has always been, you know, something that gave me great comfort during stressful times and good times as well. Um, and yeah, I just feel like it's something I'm never going to grow out of, even if I was Lynn Johnson herself, even if I had that kind of career.
Yeah, definitely. If you were Lynn Johnson herself, and that would be hard to look in the mirror then, because you'd be like, oh my God, it's Lynn Johnson.
That would be hard. Yeah.
All right. Well, Faith, I want to thank you for coming back on the program. It's been a delight talking to you. Really enjoyed so far the first two issues of The Mummy.
Yeah, it's
Can't wait to
awesome.
read the second two. People, check it out at your local comic shops. The third issue is coming out at the end of the month, I think.
Yes, I think it's May 26th. And then the fourth issue will follow in June.
There we go. Fantastic. So definitely people check it out. Thank you so much for coming on, Faith. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.